You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And I start with Abdul Malik Kukubako. So here we are. We have been here to debate the matters of the petition itself and appropriateness or otherwise, and then the process started and we're here. Some of the matters got leaked. We got to know that out of the 27 of the allegations against the chairperson, they were narrowed down to 6, and all of them were on procurement matters, among others. So it does appear that your conviction, you appear to have had a certain conviction that on the basis of the allegations being narrowed to only questions of procurement, Charles Dosey would not be found guilty.
Well, I'm not too sure whether in terms of exactitude you're speaking my language, but you know, I have to be very frank with you. I was on her side. I'm still on her side, and I did it with all my conscience and conviction, and I still stay by her. That's important.
Okay.
It's a matter of conviction, conscience, and commitment to a just cause. I got a report, the committee's report last night. I've been reading through it. I have to be honest, I haven't finished reading through it, but I got a copy last night and went through it. In terms of the legal process, what the president had to do relative to the Constitution, I have no difficulty with that. I think a lot of people are trying to, you know, shift the focus of the discussion. In any case, there were precedents. And in that earlier case, I'm sure you, Samson Lady, you were involved in that case. This is the Loretta Lamte issue. So I'm not too sure.
So when we refer to that, we should not forget about 1999.
Exactly.
Dr. Opon of the NCCE also
Exactly.
went through the same process. He was a deputy commissioner. He was found guilty. He went to the Supreme Court. They threw him out.
Yes. So there are precedents, and I think that we shouldn't be wasting too much time on those aspects. It's needless argumentation as far as I'm concerned.
As for the judges of the Superior Court, they face it regularly because that's the only way to remove them.
Yes. There were initial hiccups with the procedure Mrs. Osei contested.
Yes.
I think there were remedies that were done. So we should move on and focus on the substance of the issue. I was following the committee's work consistently. I happened to place myself in the position where I could get the addresses, the testimonies, quite a lot of them which I've brought here. And I have to be very honest with you. The petitioners and their testimony at there was a gentleman, the driver, forcing ample force.
Ample forcing. It was the main sort of.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. But I have to be very honest with you. I have his testimony here. I have his cross-examination here. It was a complete disaster. The person who had led the petitioners and was claiming that he was doing it on basis of personal knowledge of the allegations that he had made, when he appeared before the committee, actually showed that he had no personal knowledge of anything that had been put in their petition.
Give us indications.
A lot, if you permit me. Doing his
proceedings.
The record of proceedings.
For example, he said they had taken a petition to their lawyer and all the petitioners had signed. It turned out there was nothing like that.
And one of them was dead.
Yeah.
Okay? The question of thresholds for chairperson and other members, he had no idea. He had even claimed that he attends commission meetings, and that's how he had a personal knowledge. It turned out that it was nil. It is only when management has issues with labor and labor leaders are being called, and he being one of the leaders in the Ashanti region could come into a meeting, but not the commission's meetings. It's a lot here. I will find a lot for you. It was a huge disaster. But so I thought it will not be entertained.
There are 3 petitions. Oh, you're talking about Charlotte.
Yes, Charlotte.
Yes. I was thinking it ought not to be entertained. And you know what he did? He said, oh, those allegations he's made will be validated by the other commissioners. Each occasion, when he was asked, he says, no, Director of Finance will come and speak for me. He will bring the evidence. He himself didn't have the evidence. Meanwhile, he had claimed in his testimony that he had personal knowledge. That's the witness statement.
Witness statements.
Yes, rather. The 2 other commissioners, he says, oh, they will come and back his case. You see, he proved one thing. This whole thing was a conspiracy. That's how it began. Among the members of the commission, 4 members of the commission, Paulina, Jawazao, I always...
Adawa.
He taught me how to pronounce her name. I forgot. May she forgive me. I'm unable to pronounce her surname.
You miss the...
Agrifin,
Tapus.
Georgina Amankwa, and Amadou Suli. They plotted it. But interestingly, they dug a hole. The hole was too big. So they all entered it. In entering, they dragged Charlotte along. That's the way I see it. What I find intriguing, and I have to be very frank.
Sorry, the basis on which you say they plotted it, you must establish that.
A tape recorder was presented to the committee. I've searched through the committee's report. I see no hint.
No reference.
No reference. Pauline herself, when she appeared, declined to comment on it. Meanwhile, that tape was accepted as part of the proceedings. I know it wasn't exactly part of the terms of reference. You lawyers will know better in drawing the fine lines of distinctions. But it was, I thought they should take judicial notice. In that recording, a member of the commission was making the claim that they had decided, the 4 of them, had decided to work to get Charlotte out. And on that basis, they were going to send a petition to the president. This is black and white.
Charlotte lawyers did not insist on that.
They raised all those issues. The committee itself ruled on those things. I have them here. Some I found it significant. And the lady herself, whose voice is on the tape, in fact, the journalist, he works here now. At that time, he wasn't working.
She and 4 others.
3 others.
It's other she and 3 others.
No, 3 and
yeah,
no,
she and 3
did I
others.
say
So
4? I'm sorry.
Because there are 4.
I'm sorry.
She and 3 others.
Yes, 3 others. And she says so. She says so on the tape. The journalist who recorded her was invited as a witness and actually testified.
That's right.
That journalist works with your station. It's Parker something.
Okay.
So I found that very
At
significant.
the time, he was a freelance journalist.
Okay.
And why I say there was a problem is that is why the lead petitioner kept on transferring his answers to the commissioners, that is the 2 deputy commissioners, and the director of finance, because he knew nothing. And I was wondering if the petitioners themselves had no knowledge of what they had brought before the president, which the president rightly had sent to the CJ. And the CJ, after doing prima facie determination, had sent to set up a committee to deal with. I was thinking, in my layman, unfortunately, because I'm a layman, I thought that this is a non-starter. But the committee is wisdom, and it's made up of 3 Supreme Court judges. Of course, 2 were Court of Appeal. In the course of the ROEC, they were promoted to Supreme Court. It means nothing. Let nobody read any ulterior motives into that.
It is fair to add, when you say that they plotted to remove her, in fact, in the audio, she was heard saying that even though she had a year to go out, she was bent to ensure that Charlotte will go before she does. But it is fair to say that she didn't just say, we want to remove her because we hate her. She noted that she had done some procurement, she had the partitioning matter that came up.
No, but even
she refers to all of these and says she did them without them. And they are not happy about it.
The aspects of the partitioning she was talking about, the committee didn't find Charlotte guilty. The point about requesting for the building from government, The fact that the commission itself was subsequently told and the minutes that were made available, those aspects were what she was talking about to the journalist to go and publish. If you read the committee's report, Charlotte was vindicated on those aspects, except when they come to the question of threshold. After she had sought public procurement approval, the committee believes that she went beyond the threshold. So that's the area they indict her.
Right.
But not what the lady was telling the journalist. On those calls, Charlotte was actually cleaned. But the key point, the other motive she made to the journalist was that the NDC, and that, as far as I'm concerned, was rubbish.
Yeah, because those were dismissed. They were not part of the issue.
So it would be useful if we focused on what the...
No, but I think I was establishing...
But coming from a certain perspective.
Let him finish
the
up, I'll get to
competence
you.
of the petition.
Okay.
The motive of those who organized the petition. That's the point I'm making.
All right.
It's of relevance, utmost relevance. I'm saying that this lady made the point why you are talking about, she made allegations of procurement and things. She also made allegation of bribery and corruption. That $12 million was brought to the commission and that Charlotte kept $6 million for herself, and the deputy information minister also kept $6 million. So the motive for them to get rid of Charlotte was not only about perceived procurement breaches, but also her information, whatever it was, and I think it was false, that they had been given $12 million to share before the election. She claimed that was a
she was careful about that and instructing the journalists that if you are publishing that, we don't want the NDC to look bad. So be careful how you deal with that.
But that is no excuse. That doesn't mitigate anything. She actually even said she's closer to John Mahama than Charlotte is. But all those things are not the essentials. The point is that she had a mission together with her friends, apart from perceived procurement breaches, which indeed has turned out not to be wholly true, talking about the fact that the system had been corrupted. She's still a member of the commission, due for retirement, integrity. And the committee did not find it necessary to look into that allegation. Okay, no problems. I thought they would have recommended to the police to take a look at that, even if that was not part of their terms of reference. But that's it. Now, what else do you want me to discuss?
The committee, Kweku, was to stick to the prima facie determination made by the Chief Justice.
Yes.
The committee, the Chief Justice appointed in consultation with the Judicial Council of 25 members and in consultation with the Council of State, had a clear mandate.
Yes, I have said
dealing
so.
with 6 allegations of procurement.
That's all.
I have said so.
So why are you inviting them to look at this?
No, not the committee.
This one, even though it was part
the
of the
committee could
hearing.
have taken judicial notice of it. That's what I said.
They chose not to.
Okay.
Fair deal. But now here we are interrogating the work of the committee. I'm entitled to point that omission out, even if they don't see it as an omission.
Okay.
I'm also entitled to make the point that, yes, as you indicated, there were 27, 28 allegations. It was not narrowed down to 6. The 21 allegations were eliminated or dismissed.
Yes.
That's a better way of putting it.
That's correct.
Now, let's look at the 6 prima facie cases one by one. The first was the
At law.
The procurement. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there was, seriously speaking, a violation of the public procurement law. You see, I think there's been a strict interpretation of the public procurement law, a very hard, strict, harsh way.
Explain, quick.
See, this EC, first of all, perhaps this points to the fact that they may need their own internal legal department, which is something the UNDP report had recommended earlier. You remember they used to use the Attorney General to do their cases, and the Supreme Court or something later on decided they couldn't do that. It's all but to move away the partisanship and give them their appropriate neutrality.
When they set it up, they will still need external solicitors, as it happens all along.
Yes, but the way and manner, the nature of cases, they are not always in litigation.
Right.
The litigation also comes differently, different scales.
Or seasonal.
So the practice there before Charlotte was that we do case by case in terms of contracting legal services. Kwasi Aidan and thing where they are lawyers. It was the same thing. There was no formal contract. They did things case by case. Obviously, they continued with that practice with sorry at law. Now, sorry at law, if you look at it, was case by case. The commissioners who testified against Charlotte on behalf of the petitioners who didn't have any much knowledge, their view was that no, there was no formal contract. We didn't have a meeting where we appointed sorry at law. But significantly, these same commissioners went to court each occasion with sorry at law to deal with the cases. The invoices that sorry at law presented, some of these commissioners minuted on it in terms of the payment. Now, if you talk of threshold, we have to go back and look at the case by case and see whether the case by case actually went, the values, went beyond the so-called
the overall
threshold.
total
But
that
overall
accrued to 400,000.
I'm not sure
and the committee says they should be paid their money.
Yes,
anyway.
yes. But I'm not too sure whether the overall total is what we should be looking at. We should be looking at the value case by case in terms of threshold factor. That's the point I'm making.
I get that.
But I'm saying that it's such a hard and harsh decision to take. If you look at the context, that's the point I'm making.
All right.
So that's the allegation number one. There are 5 more left relative to Charlotte.
If you can deal with just one more, and then I'll get others to also
let somebody come
contribute,
in.
and then we can proceed to some others. Yes. Maybe you take Kwaza.
Yeah. Kwaza and Dream
Over.
I read the testimonies delivered by the head of donor desk unit of the EC. Again, throughout the existence of this yeasting, those funds, and the argument Charlotte then made was that those funds are not public funds as defined by the public
PPA.
No, not the other one you gave me.
The Public Financial Management Act.
Yes, and the Constitution and things. They gave the specific areas, things that can be categorized as public funds, and did not see the donor, UNDP, and USAID financing of some aspects of EC operations as belonging to public funds. So that argument is to be determined. I am inclined to believe the testimony of the gentleman who testified on behalf of the EC boss. That relative to that, and I remember the cash for seat issue. When it came up, there was a similar debate. Indeed, at the committee level, the monies that were paid by those contractors or the people were sent into a certain account under the Ministry of Trade. If you read the proceedings of the committee on cash for seat, they came to the conclusion that those monies, though had been lodged into a public account in view of the fact that the Ministry of Trade and Industry is a public institution, the monies by themselves were not public funds.
And that they were holding it in trust.
They were holding it in trust. If I go to that place too, I think the decision is harsh.
But they refer to the Public Procurement Act,
As amended.
which says, as amended?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which says that you needed at least prior approval of the Public Procurement Authority.
They were talking about the agreement, even the agreement between the USA, the Ministry of Finance. There was an element where they say apply your
own
internal procedure thing.
Internal laws.
Yes, even that one, it was stated
They
there.
say so, but I am saying that my understanding is that the decision they have given is too harsh.
Okay.
It's too strict.
Okay, Kuku, so...
It's an overkill.
Okay, take a breather.
We are talking of removing somebody who is an electoral commissioner or of the status of a court of appeal judge. I think we must have something more substantive to deal with.
Okay. Now, Esla, when you look at the overall, you would find that they come to the conclusion that in respect of the chairperson, because she's the head of the entity and the Procurement Act provides some oversight responsibility for her, and she having to shepherd most of the things that have to be done, for not ensuring that these were complied with to the letter, she acted incompetently, and they construed that to be misbehavior, for which she must suffer.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. This is a matter which distresses all of us, particularly as a woman, and find that the three commissioners, 2 of the 3 were women. For us, we carry the weight of our gender with us everywhere we go. And whether we succeed or we fail, it is the failure or success of the entire gender.
Womanhood.
And so it is particularly distressing for me. Charlotte is my friend. I know Georgina as well. But let me just read the conclusions of the, in answer to your question, of the committee on this. And they state that the conduct of the chairperson in the award of contracts without observing the Public Procurement Act appeared to be a pattern, and this can best be described as misbehavior. As the head of the entity, it was expected that she would uphold the law, the procurement law and procedures to set a standard as far as procurement activities of the Commission was concerned. And the evidence of record demonstrates her persistent breach of the Public Procurement Act. And they make the point that it is strange that she failed to apply the same standard which she used to judge, which she used to abrogate the STL contracts entered into by Madam Opoku Agyeman. She gave evidence, Opoku Amankwa. She gave evidence against Opoku Amankwa on this same point. And then you turn around and do the exact same thing that you have accused and damned and indicted her of. And they found that that was also very bad. And I'll quote that what they said: after displaying the zeal to ensure that procurement activities are conducted in accordance with the law, she fell into the same and more serious acts of infringing the procurement laws. The chairperson, as head of entity, in several ways breached the provisions of the Act. So you are not just held to a high standard as head of entity. By your own conduct, you impugn the actions of one of your deputies and abrogate the contract, still hold that action against her, even at the commission, where you go and give evidence against her. And then you are engaged in even more egregious breaches of the same Procurement Act. And that's part of the reason why they indicted her for that. Now, is the breach of the Procurement Act a matter which should lead to the loss of her position as electoral commissioner? They conclude that the Chief Justice in her prima facie determination observed, and I'll quote, "The Public Procurement Act is an enactment which one may say is made in pursuance of the principles of probity and accountability expressed in Article 37(1) of the Constitution. It envisages that in the procurement of goods and services with public resources, there must be standard practices which are aimed at fairness and value for money so as to strengthen the national economy. And it is for this reason, in my view, that the Act is so detailed and specific in the processes and procedures it prescribes." And they go on to itemize the particular sections of the Act and conclude that much was expected from the chairperson of the commission, and she was expected to apply the standards and procedures set out by the Act. And their findings give a catalogue of the breaches she inflicted on the Act, and they list it and go on to say that they, in their opinion, those actions warranted her removal from that position, because even though she claimed that it wasn't a core function of the commissioners to do procurement, she took upon herself, arrogated upon herself, the duty of taking personal charge of all the procurement in the EC, to the exclusion even of the entity tender committees, the procurement team set up in the EC itself. So by her own conduct, she has elevated this to an act which the commissioner herself should take personal charge of. And so she can't just turn around and say that it is not an action that should lead or warrant her removal. they find that she blatantly breached the act without justification, and that conduct amounts to misbehavior. And for me, it puts and the strict adherence to the, why should our laws be enforced either strictly or loosely, depending on the person who is the victim, more or less. We either decide that we're going to enforce our laws or we're not. And I'm saying that...
Kuku may have a small point there. In coming to the prima facie determination, the Chief Justice decides to adopt a flexible approach to determining whether or not the petition itself meets the qualifications of a petition. So she does not adopt the strict approach, which as was set out in a previous case, a J-Chum. So if he says, apply it a little softly, why do you disagree?
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that why should it matter depending on who is the target of the application of the law? Then we're being discriminatory in the way we apply our law. If it is Nelson, I'll apply it strictly. If it is Samson, I'll apply it
in the case
loosely.
of the radio stations.
You know, oh, we gave an amnesty. We gave a general amnesty. Right. So let's not veer into that. You know, so we either do it or we don't. And when she's determining whether there's a prima facie case, she's only determining whether there is enough evidence to justify further investigations into the matter, or whether those allegations should be rubbished and thrown out. So at that stage, they are not really determining guilt or innocence of any of the accused persons or the parties. She is just only determining whether there is enough to warrant this matter being further looked into. For all of us as public officers, it gives us cause to sit up. And I think when I started thinking about these things, I was saying that, now who caused them? The infighting in the commission, the desire to bring one another down, and it was on both sides. The group of four cabal and the commissioner herself was also determined to...
she never spoke publicly.
I'm not saying that she did, by her actions, her conduct. She had found things which she believed merited further investigations, and had set up the audit committee, had actually asked Yoko to investigate some of these matters, and had gone on to indict the conduct of some of her own deputy commissioners. And so they, in seeking to also defend themselves, said, okay, you're also not a saint. So we'll also throw your stuff out there, and let's see who survives.
No, this is a rude intervention. In terms of sequence, that's not what happened. In terms of sequence, it was a petition was sent to Yoko. The petition that was sent to the president, that same petition, if you recall, was sent to Yoko, word for word. And Yoko invited her response. She responded. The response got leaked. So it is not as if she began. And
but
then they
didn't
retouched
she submit the conduct of Georgina to investigation
but
by
that was
Yoko?
Not in the public space.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about what was in the public space.
Okay.
I'm talking about the actions of the commissioners themselves.
Right.
The deputies felt threatened.
And would it have been
no,
wrong if
wait.
somebody
She's
had
talking
petitioned?
about whatever it is being self-inflicted and an
Absolutely.
internal
That's the point
quarrel.
I'm making.
Okay.
It is the consequences of this internal rift between the commissioners which has led us to this point. You know, she she asked Yoko to investigate the conduct of Georgina Opokwa Mankwa, who also feels threatened by that and says, okay, then we'll see, we'll also expose, also, let's say, Atute Rosho, there's a silk cotton in your anus. So, pardon my French this morning, excuse me. And so, don't jump over a fire, because it can catch fire. And so, we'll also expose what you are doing there. And all of this has led to this decapitation, more or less, of the commission.
But Kuku makes a point about what you refer to happening
Privately.
long after the premeditated, quote unquote, you know, the plot hatched to get her out, which was recorded by the journalists.
Yeah. That was the
For
beginning.
me, I am not privy to that, and so I cannot speak to it.
It's part of the body of the process that was before the committee.
But in any adjudicating,
and it was played for
in
everybody
any
to hear.
adjudicating
Okay.
body, they determine what weight to put on the evidence before them.
You're right.
They listened to it and decided that let's not lend any credence to it, because they may have decided that it doesn't really add or take away from the other findings that they're going to make on the other evidence before them.
Right.
So for me, I would look at what evidence they used to arrive at the conclusions they arrived at, which they thought were weighty enough to lead them to the recommendations
right,
that they drew. At the end of the day, I am surprised at the attempt to draw the president into it. He had absolutely no choice in this matter. Once the petition is handed over to him, he can't even assess it to see whether it merits being transmitted to the Chief Justice for investigation or not. That's not his duty. It is the Chief Justice who determines whether it is weighty, it is worth investigating or not. Yeah. His only duty is to transmit it like a conveyor belt to the Chief Justice, who has the constitutional duty of determining whether there is enough reason or evidence to warrant further investigation, and then take the necessary steps. So when people politicize it and say that the MPP wanted to get rid of her even before they came to power, and so they have used this as a ruse to get her out of office, I think it is clouding the issues here. We're talking about the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Ghana.
They suggest that there are petitions before the same president, and he's not found reason to act on them.
Which petitions?
They are referring to one particular petition by the La. They say it's about concerns lands or something.
Is it
sent to the
against
president.
a constitutional body like the NCC
They
or
say
the
it's
Electoral
against,
Commission?
they say it's against the Chief Justice.
Ah, okay. I'm not aware of that. So, and if it is against the Chief Justice, who does the president send it to?
Well, the Minister of Information, who is also spokesperson for the president, yesterday said he's unaware of such a petition.
I'm also unaware of it.
But there's a group that insists that they have taken the petition there. It was duly receipted or received, and nothing has happened for a long time now.
We shall look into it. But it is the meat that is on the fire that we are roasting now.
Okay.
So that issue, we will look at it. We will look into it later. The point is
that point they make is to justify the claim that it is not correct to say the president, is only, a postmaster, as it were, post office where the process is taken through, and he has absolutely no, function to perform in the process.
In this matter, that's what the constitutional duty imposed on him.
This is a copy of that petition.
Oh, okay. Can I keep it?
I could make a copy.
Okay, so
That's the only
petition
copy I
for the
have. I can make a
removal of the Chief Justice, and it's dated the 21st of February 2018, and signed by the petitioners. But do you know the exact date on which it was delivered?
No,
Okay.
but I know it was delivered.
All right, okay, let's go.
So this one is a nice aside. The duty imposed on the president is to forward these petitions to the Chief Justice, who will set up the prima facie case. Now, I don't know if the Constitution also provides a procedure for another body to set up, to investigate, to receive the petition if the petition is against the Chief Justice himself.
Yes,
Yes.
then it's the president.
146.6.
Is the president acting with the Council of State who
Who will do that?
Right.
Okay.
146.6.
I am sure we will come to that in due course.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Electoral Commission, the president acted well within his authority and his right, and did absolutely nothing wrong. And so I would urge all of us that sometimes we need to take a step back from our partisan political position and look at the interest of the nation. Now, if, for the sake of argument, some people had taken to the streets and caused mayhem, and the police had also prevented them, somebody was even sitting on Facebook preaching civil war. Really? Seriously?
It's not only on Facebook. You must have listened to the press conference held the night after the thing was made public.
I didn't. You know, so if you don't take your time to, and at the time they hadn't even seen the reasons why or heard the reasons why these decisions were taken, and assume that because it affects somebody that we think is our person, so let us all rally behind and support. I think Charlotte is my person too, very much so. But I will look at what has happened and consider the body of evidence that led to that decision. See if there's any merit at all in it. I'm sure there's an opportunity for any of them to appeal if they so wish, so that they would also work within the law to vindicate themselves if they desire. Instead of people taking to the streets and threatening the peace and security of this country. And if anybody does, I will urge the police to also deal with them in accordance with the law. If we all decide to take the law in our own hands and do what we like because we don't like the way a decision has gone, that's inviting us to descend into the state of the jungle, where it is the survival of the fittest, and we throw all caution to the wind and just act or take leave of our senses and act on the basis of emotions without thinking about the implications of our actions.
Okay.
It doesn't serve any of us well. And let me just make a final point. I think in transmitting the recommendations to the President, the Chief Justice also transmitted recommendations, general observations and recommendations that the committee had made. And I think it is instructive if we listen to them.
Right.
And if you might permit me, I will quote that. It says that, the Chief Justice says that, the committee also submitted to me a document setting out a series of issues that came to their attention in the course of their proceedings, pertaining to the general operation and corporate governance of the Electoral Commission. I have attached them here too, so that necessary steps may be taken in the interest of the state for proper public financial administration and the assurance of the ends for which the Electoral Commission exists in the first place. And there are 9 recommendations they make. 1, the Electoral Commission must ensure strict compliance with electoral laws, especially in relation to the operation of the information in its database. Any person who has access to the database must comply with the law in regard to any information he or she places in or deletes from it. This has become necessary due to the fact that the database operators could just effect voter transfers from the system without regard to the law in place. If such a thing can go on, who knows what other illegalities are operated in their IT systems? They need to be reminded of the dire consequences of such illegal actions. And this
must be springing from Amadou Sule's point.
And that is worrying for all of us.
All right.
The law sets out how voter transfers can be made. Has nothing to do with STL. It has to be done at the constituency level.
Okay. So
and yet a commissioner can just direct STL to delete or transfer information, which is wrong.
By WhatsApp. Which WhatsApp he denied, but
you know, he was found to have lied to the committee on that respect.
Okay, so
and then 2, there is the need to set up an audit review implementation committee within the commission as required by law. Had no idea they didn't have one.
Now it's audit committee.
Audit committee.
So this is coming from the CJ?
This is coming from the committee through the CJ to the President.
And
is it part of the
if
report?
you read, but if you go back and read the UNDP report, which was given to
just
DC just before Charlotte came in, it's almost the same thing.
All right, so please go on.
So go on and read it. Please, let me just go through it.
Let us finish.
3,
but it's important.
We observed that the non-existence of a legal department at the Commission to offer legal advice to the commissioners, some of whom are not lawyers, has also resulted in some of the actions and inactions that unfolded before the committee. 4, the tender review panel at the Commission is not in accordance with the procurement laws, and so it should take steps to dissolve it and comply henceforth with the existing procurement laws. 5, we observed that a lot of the evidence that was placed before the committee could have been avoided if the Commission had followed ordinary, simple administrative practice of recording, approving, and signing minutes of meetings of the Commission. No minutes of the commission was signed, hence disputes as to what was actually discussed and agreed upon arose before the committee. That practice must stop.
It had been there for years.
And then 6, concerning approvals given by the Public Procurement Authority to the organization, it would be advisable for the PPA to insist that once they have approved sole sourcing for a certain amount, any contract in excess would require further approval from the PPA or the Central Tender Review Committee. The organization on its own cannot award a contract for more than the amount for which approval was sought and given. It could lead to future litigation if the point is not brought home to the organization that the very mischief the law was passed to cure is being perpetrated if the organization is free to award contracts for more than the amount for which the PPA has given approval. 7.
So this particular one will relate to one of the claims that they found against Charlotte Osei.
Yes.
Okay.
We observed that the commissioners engaged in mutual accusation, and we noticed clearly a lack of cooperation between them. We think a board or council in the mode of the Judicial Council, if set up, would help resolve such differences to allow sanity to prevail among the commissioners. The board or council could also call them to order if they are acting contrary to law. I don't know how we can set that up, or if the Constitution would allow, or the Electoral Commission's law would allow us to, but we need to think seriously about that. If at the top they can't agree among themselves, who do they appeal to?
Yeah. Point 7 definitely appear to require a legislative process.
Absolutely. 8. As a matter of urgency, the practice whereby the commission collects cash from political parties and place same in individual staff accounts must stop. Indeed, all political parties must also stop paying cash to any official of the commission. That's a reminder to the MPP, which is just about to have its Congress next weekend.
Right.
So how we relate to the commission in this manner, we should also think about. Then finally,
Paying to the account or by bankers' drafts,
yes.
right?
Finally, we observe that the commission has adopted a habit of using its materials to conduct primaries for the political parties with a view of being paid back. This practice has resulted in problems of accountability by staff of the commission. We would recommend that the commission should not utilize any of its materials in the conduct of political party primaries or elections for that matter. The commission must insist on the political party making available every material they would require to conduct their elections, failing which the commission would be perfectly justified in refusing to conduct the elections for the particular political party. I don't know how this would work in practice, but I think we use their consumables.
Is it only,
we need to pay
is it
for
only
it.
3 signatures I see for the
There are
members
all
for
the
this?
signatures.
All of them, okay. All of them have signed. All right. So that is a
know,
very good note on which we should take this next break. When we return, we'll hear from Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo and Dr. Eric Odro Sai.